Commission Counsel Bassett.
Here.
Investigator Terry. Acting Associate Counsel Hazlitt.
I'm here.
Executive Assistant Saldana.
Here.
Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Executive Director Armstrong, has the commission received any public comment by email to be read into the record?
We have not.
Right. Are there any members of the public who are attending in person or via Zoom who want to provide public comment?
We do not have anybody here in Las Vegas to provide public comment. And we have an ICR presenter on Zoom, but no other members of the public on Zoom.
Okay. All right, first item, approval of the August 20th, 2025 Legislative Committee meeting minutes. Commissioners, do you have any changes or additions to the minutes?
I don't have any changes. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
All right, I will second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item, we have a presentation by the Campaign Legal Center on trends across the country regarding ethics legislation. I would like to introduce Delaney Marsco.
Oh, it looks like we have someone.
Kendrick Payne.
Huh?
Sorry.
Kendrick Payne.
Oh, Kendrick.
Person
Okay. Kendrick Payne. Sorry, I had a different name on my list. I would like to go and introduce Kendrick Payne, the Director of Ethics for the Campaign Legal Center. Please give us your presentation on trends across the country regarding ethics legislation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me. And I'll take about 5 minutes just to give you this presentation and then leave room for questions if you have any. Let me first just give you a little background about Campaign Legal Center. CLC is a nonpartisan, nonprofit legal organization based in Washington, D.C. It's been around since 2002. And what we do is fight to solve all of the problems that we see facing the American democracy. And with respect to state and local ethics commissions, we provide a bird's eye view of what's happening in the nation and try to provide best practices, trends, and other information that may be helpful for those organizations. My background is that I am the Senior Director of Ethics at Campaign Legal Center, the Vice President, and the General Counsel. I have been practicing government ethics work for 20 years, and I've seen it from different perspectives, and that's what I'll be using as I talk to you today. I began my career in government ethics working at Skadden Arps in private practice, being the outside legal counsel for large corporations that were seeking to do business with state and local governments and needed advice on how to comply with the rules. After learning how to do the advice part of government ethics, I went into enforcement, working at the Office of Congressional Ethics, where I was a deputy chief counsel enforcing ethics rules against members of Congress accused of possible ethics violations. And then finally, I worked in the executive branch of federal government, where I worked on education and outreach, similar to some of the missions of this commission, where I would help the officials within that agency comply with the rules. Now I'm with CLC, where we work, as I mentioned, to try to improve the laws, but also serve as a resource for other agencies. That being said, there are 3 things that I want to do today. First, tell you about the positive trends that we are seeing across the country. That will be the shortest part of my presentation. The second part is about the negative trends, the threats, the risks, and the challenges that we're seeing ethics commissions face that I think is very relevant for this subcommittee. And then finally, I'll talk about the tactics that we've seen that have been used to help either if you're trying to do positive legislation or protect yourself from different threats. So first with the positive legislation. There have been approximately 500 different bills that have been proposed related to ethics across the country. And that is according to the National Conference of Legislative of NCLSC, National Conference of Legislators. Might be missing part of that acronym. But the point is that organization has tracked all of the different legislation that's been proposed, and a lot of it is for ways to improve how the Ethics Commission operates. To do rough categories of what all this legislation falls into. It is typically related to transparency. More transparency meaning that it is a request for more financial disclosure or for the range of financial disclosure to be increased. Second, it is related to ethics enforcement, that is giving the commission more power or more ease with starting investigations and going and considering complaints. And then finally, there are attempts to make more restrictive rules that could be for gift limits or for different rules with conflicts of interest. And many of the trends I'm discussing with you now are based on an analysis that ProPublica released about 3 or 4 weeks ago on the trends with state ethics commissions and their attempt to get positive legislation passed. The real takeaway from that analysis is that most of the time when these states are trying to get something positive passed, these ethics commissions run into opposition, and many times that positive ethics law is not passed. And I did not see anything where education outreach, which I believe is a priority of this committee, is being proposed. Like most of the ethics laws that are being proposed deal with those matters that I just discussed. But because most of these commissions are finding that the legislation that they want to pass isn't happening, we see a bigger trend that's national and state at the state local level, where these commissions are dealing with threats to their power. The real trend is that state commissions are concerned that what they're seeing at the federal level may trickle down to the state level. And when I refer to the federal level, I'm referring to how currently the federal ethics mechanisms that are supposed to enforce ethics laws, administer the ethics laws, educate, and provide outreach to federal employees have been sort of dismantled. The heads of those relevant agencies were removed. It's difficult for them to operate. And the concern at the state level is that maybe people in power may see that this is a role, a blueprint that can be followed at the local level and stop the active enforcement of ethics rules. So when it comes to the trends that are threats, CLC has done a report for 2 years now where we look at all the states to see, and District of Columbia, to see whether or not there are any trends with how these ethics commissions are being attacked. We find that the attacks fall into 3 categories. I mention this to you because I do believe that at the same time that you are concerned about how you can improve your ethics commission, you also have to be on alert of anything that may come down the road that threatens your ethics commission. As I mentioned when I get to the trends, there are situations where your commission may be at high risk right now based on your recent cases and decisions. So in those negative trends, what we have seen is that there's an attack on the subject matter jurisdiction of these agencies, which means try to narrow what the commission is responsible for working on. Second, there are threats to the enforcement power of these commissions to just make it so that they really can't investigate and hold individuals accountable for potential violations. And then finally, there's existential threats, which are the highest level of threats, where there are attempts to completely erase the ethics commission or take away all of their ability to operate. The trends that are most relevant to you, I would say, out of the what we found are as follows. And I should mention that there are 10 states out of about 45 that have ethics commissions that dealt with threats to their power. And the good news is that 8 out of those 10 commissions were able to push back those threats. But the one trend that we are seeing is that those threats to the ethics commissions are bipartisan. They happen from Republicans and Democrats, but the trend is that the legislative threats typically come up where there is a single party government, the government trifecta, as many people refer to it, where one party rules both chambers of the legislature and the governorship, something that you don't have to worry about right now in Nevada, but something for you to know. Second is that we are seeing that the threats usually come after a commission has found someone guilty of a violation in a high-profile case. And you've recently had multiple high-profile cases, and those are the ones where not out of nowhere, but soon thereafter, there are these threats from a legislative perspective. And then finally, I will say that we saw a trend where ethics commissions that were newly formed, those after 2000, are starting to be attacked more so than those that are older, such as yours. But that kind of weighs both ways for you. You still are at a risk of having these legislative threats. To wrap up the presentation, what I want to talk about are the tactics that we've seen that have been successful, and that may be something that this committee wants to consider. The committees that have been able to push away those threats have proactively engaged with legislative leaders who respect the Ethics Commission's process, that is, actively building relationships with those who like the Ethics Commission. And that may be something that this subcommittee may want to consider focusing on. And second, not only proactively engaging with legislative leaders who like the Ethics Commission, but also those who are hostile to it. That shows the ability to develop credibility, and it showed that there are no perceived notions of the intent of these individuals, and to have clear visibility and awareness if there are going to be potential threats. One final thing I will mention is that when it comes to outreach and education, CLC did a report of how ethics commissions have been able to improve this with their commissions without legislation. It's called a top 10 upgrade for training report that we did either a year or two, maybe 2 years ago, where we recognized that when it comes to trying to promote legislation, it becomes very unpredictable because so much of it is not in the control of the commission and so in the control of politics and just whatever else are the priorities of the state at the time, that we were able to see what commissions have been doing to enhance that part of their mission without going through the legislative process. All right, so I hope that was helpful. I am available for any questions that you may have.
Mr. Miller, questions for him?
I don't have any questions. I appreciate you coming and speaking with us.
Thank you.
I just have one question. So is this a more recent trend that's happening, or has this something that over the years it's continued with the threats to ethics commissions? Has that always been something that's been going on?
It has always been going on. We at CLC just started to focus on it and interview commissions and track it last year. And the number of states that have faced these threats has stayed consistent, off maybe about one, both last year and this year. So it seems to be consistent with how this is always a thing.
Yeah, I think that's, go ahead,
I
Bob.
just have a quick question. When you talked about states improving items like transparency, you talked about like financial transparency. I'm guessing in most of those cases, is that the process of like annual financial disclosure forms people are filing, or is it in like the meeting disclosure abstention piece?
Most of them is with financial disclosure. We're trying to expand what's in the financial disclosure, and it's a financial disclosure not only for public officials, but also lobbyists, and then who has to disclose.
Okay. Hey, Mr. Payne, what were the 2 out of the 10 jurisdictions that you were talking about where the ethics commission was like, I guess, dismantled or?
Yes. Yeah, let me look at this. The 2 that were were not able to push back the threat. One is still pending, is with the District of Columbia, where it looks as though they're going to have their power restricted on deciding who has to file financial disclosure forms. And the other one was Louisiana, where the board of the Louisiana the board of the commission now needs a 2/3 majority to be able to start an investigation. So it weakens their enforcement power.
Thank you.
That's pretty tough.
Wow, that's
just had that.
That's interesting. So I just want to ask you a question since you are familiar with a lot of ethics commissions and stuff. Do any of the commissions have statutes that if somebody doesn't have for us, you have to have a pecuniary interest to have a violation if you've done something, pretty much, or a familiar relationship, or relationship, let's put it that way. Do any of them have provisions that if you don't have a pecuniary interest, you don't have a relationship as what we consider a relationship? And I'll give you an example. Say you have somebody who is they're head of a business licensing department, and their friend comes in or somebody comes in, they want to get a business license, and that would compete with their friend, and they deny the license to this person because it would compete with their friend. Does anybody have anything in their statutes like that? It's kind of, to me, an abuse of power.
Yes. The way I've seen that has been a broad restriction on not showing impartiality, right? So just being partial and providing special favors, but I cannot think of how that's been enforced. So it's not common for the conflict to be something based on just helping your friend, but I have seen where there are the local laws that are broad enough to sort of apply in that situation, but I can't think of a situation where that's been enforced. Clearly, I don't know them all.
No, like disparate treatment. Obviously, I'm in the banking industry. We have a lot of disparate treatment where you can't give a loan to one person that you deny someone else. And we have a lot of review on that. But, that would be one way to look at it if you're going to, track, especially applications or mortgage law is a big one, right? At least in the banking.
And we've had a lot of cases, several cases that have come before us where there's no pecuniary interest, but it doesn't meet the smell test, so I was just curious, is that something that,
when you look at other states that have electronic disclosure systems, are there any out there that are performing at a level that you would say is something we should look at in Nevada, or have you seen disappointment with states that have rolled them out across the board?
Absolutely. We did a study to see which ones do. Now when you say electronic, meaning
I think California has like the Cal Access. I think Michigan has, I don't remember what they call it, but they have like a transparency network where you do your disclosures and it's kind of an access to everyone. It's public information that you do. And I was just wondering if you've done an analysis or have any feedback on how that's worked in those different states.
We have done an analysis of that and found, and it was a top 10 report, like the top 10 ways to be more transparent, including with disclosure of the financials. California was in there. The city of Los Angeles was there as well. The key part that I think is missing from your commission is that you should be able to pull down the information in a searchable, sortable, and downloadable format. On your website, you're able to sort of sort by categories, but you're not able to get it very easily. And then even the next level up for it to be very transparent is when it's downloadable for it's called an API, but a way that people can download it and manipulate it in a way they need to really get the information that's public, the information that's important out of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I can provide that to your executive director. I can provide that report that gives you examples of agencies that have done it well, the contractors they've used to do it, and the expense of it as well.
Yeah, we would appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. So I don't have any further questions, but this has been very informative, and I appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to us, and maybe we'll have you on again sometime, you know? So, and keep up the good work. So thank you very much, Mr. Payne. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. That's what we're here for, and feel free to let us know anything else we can provide.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Okay. All right, let's go to the next item. You have any other comments or anything you want to say, Commissioner Miller? Food for thought.
I definitely food for thought. I think the concept of looking at what other states are doing and it working and just the effectiveness of some of it. The path to getting something done is not easy. But it can be if we can provide feedback and see other states having, a model that's effective. We should use that as an example to try to draft change.
Exactly. All right, next item 5, presentation by Commission Counsel on arguments, court rulings, and inquiries. Commission Counsel Bassett, please give us your presentation.
So to try to help the committee determine what sort of potential actions you want to take related to, the next legislative session, I've compiled a little information about some of the arguments we routinely get from subjects and their counsel in matters, some of the court rulings that we've had recently, and issues that get raised pretty regularly by members of the public, the subjects, their counsel, the requesters. So it's sort of things we hear that people wish were true about the ethics law, right? So the first one of those is the one that's been big lately, which is confidentiality issues. So, the confidentiality protections that the ethics law has for ethics complaints at different stages of the process. So the ethics law requires that we keep the existence of an ethics complaint as well as the complaint itself and any evidence confidential until a review panel determines there's sufficient evidence to refer it. Recently, subjects and their attorneys have expressed frustration that requesters have sent copies of the complaints they filed to the news media. Well, they're still confidential, which means there's press about the ethics complaint before this body ever determines that there's any validity to it, right? So the problem is there's no provision currently in the ethics law that allows us to do anything to require a requester to keep their complaint confidential from either third parties or the press. I tried to look based on conversations I had with people, commissioners, if there's anything in our ethics law we could use. I mean, the only thing we have as sort of an enforcement mechanism is 793, which allows us with the ability to fine people or assess attorney's fees against them if they prevent or interfere with the investigation or a proceeding or the discovery of a violation of this chapter. But I think we'd have a hard time getting to that applying to requesters. I don't think probably the legislative intent is there. So this is definitely a big issue we might want to look at. I don't know what the hook would be. This would be something really interesting to see if other states have something that they can use for this, but this is certainly an issue we're aware of and we do our best, and we've asked requesters not to do it, but we can't force them not to at this point. So
We've had
So I'll ask it in a different way. Is there a way to look at it? Is there a way to make our investigation, in a sense, complete? Looking at the concept of public information and making more information available than just the complaint itself. So I don't know whether or not that's, things that go to the review panel. I'm just thinking it out. If what you're really seeking is transparency, right? They don't want to be judged by the press or other individuals based on something being taken up by the ethics committee.
Right.
Is there anything that prevents us from being more transparent
Well,
about what's being done or what's the fact that our investigation is complete? Do we give more status? Should we be giving more status updates on the process itself?
So one thing to think about is the subject of the complaint can always waive the confidentiality in writing, right? If they want to get out more, like, if they want to release their response publicly, they own that ability to waive that. One of the things we've recently done, because we dismiss a lot of cases at panel, and they go up on our website, and we've added those now to the executive director's report, so people can see like, okay, this one was dismissed,
Yeah.
right?
We're trying to publicize more when
Yeah.
and why things get dismissed, so that there's some thing there for
Feedback,
the
clarity on.
subjects also to point to. I think that the problem is we're limited because we are not allowed to breach the confidentiality until the review panel issues that panel determination. We are not allowed to release information about the complaint from us. So, right, the subject could release it if they want to. The requester has the ability, because of course they have the complaint they filed, but well, and in our investigation, those are the information we get in investigations, not public records, for a good reason. I mean, that a lot of that is actually for the protection of the subject as well, because we get information that they may not want public, but that helps, their ethics complaint, so they can produce information and give us information without worrying about it becoming public. So we would have to have we'd have to basically have a statutory change about what is public and when, for us to be able to really be more transparent, like you're saying, at that, before a review panel determination is issued.
And so Commissioner Miller, are you saying that, say we get a complaint and because part of the thing that we do before you do a jurisdictional determination, you guys actually look at public information, correct? So we've already done that. And then we proceed and we do the investigation. But oftentimes we proceed and do the investigation just from that public information that's determined to do it. And we get into the investigation and the person is innocent. And I think I would be concerned to say, well, based on this public information, they're guilty, to release it ahead of time before we've done a thorough process. I think if you looked at like the Formula One case, all right, the public information out there, it was terrible the way it looked. But then after looking at exactly what happened, after the investigation, then it was like, all right, it made sense. It was okay. So I would be concerned in that case to have said, oh, yeah, this public information, they have these tickets
And I'll note in that particular case, it's interesting because we initiated that case by motion. And the only reason the media knew that the case existed before a review panel determination is a subject took a picture of his notice of investigation and tweeted
tweeted it out.
Right, because it was no request to leak it,
Right.
but the subject leaked it.
But it is, so I mean, I understand this. We deal with it every day, right? The filing of an ethics complaint, I don't think is newsworthy, but it's not for me to decide what's newsworthy. It's the news's job to decide what's newsworthy. But in cases like where somebody files a complaint and they take it to the news and the news does a story, and if we don't even take jurisdiction, the person who the subject of the complaint is about never hears from us.
They may
And
not know.
That document stays confidential. So then there's just a story about an ethics complaint getting filed.
Well, could we, would it be, even if we don't take jurisdiction, when we don't take jurisdiction, couldn't we put something out there that we don't have jurisdiction,
We could ask the subject of the complaint if they would like to waive their confidentiality so we can provide them
that would
Right.
be something to do.
But that's right, but as our statute's written right now, we can't do that
on our own.
on our own. Like, we couldn't be like, hey, guess what? We know you guys were on this thing, but we had no jurisdiction.
What prevents it? What statute prevents that?
Is it,
Just directly engaging with the press, yeah,
What?
without the,
I think it's 755.
yeah.
The confidentiality.
Sorry.
so we're not required to inform the subject, but can we? If a story is, I think that's
what I'm
okay.
asking.
Yeah, because sometimes, like, what will happen is someone will file a complaint, they'll send it to a media source, the media source will publish it. And then the person will be like, hey, I hear there's an ethics complaint against me. And I believe in the past, we've provided that
Right.
complaint. Sometimes we have to wait because we don't have a determination about whether the identity of the subject should be confidential.
Sure. After the
So
jurisdiction order.
we
is
can tell them,
finalized.
yeah.
We can always provide a redacted complaint until that. Until such a time.
Oh, well, I guess maybe also it might be an educational thing for, maybe something to put out there that, all right,
It's 750, sorry.
of this many complaints that we've gotten, this percentage have been dismissed, or we don't even have jurisdiction. So if it's like 50%, then the press should say, you know, the validity of this complaint might be at 50%, so let's wait and see. Might be an education of the press as well.
So 750 reads, and part A reads, that once the review panel determines there's just and sufficient cause, that confidentiality goes away.
Correct.
Or they can waive it,
Right.
that's B. I have to read things twice.
No, especially these, right? Especially confidentiality statutes, I know.
I guess there is no easy way around it.
No,
There's
and
just
that's,
not an easy way to get around that complaint.
and that's the
Right.
problem is any of these solutions would really require a legislative change to how the confidentiality.
But the education piece is a good point. Like, we could create a course in Nevada Ethics Online for members of the press and invite them to, like, here's this, and it could go over
Yeah.
that information. I mean, I think
What
a couple
percentage
years
of-
ago, the Nevada Independent did a great article on how complaints work and all the way through, but
A really good article.
you know, if folks want to file a complaint and share that complaint.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
and some do it, I mean, it's, you know, and it's like nothing, and you can, sometimes you get a complaint, it's like, okay, you know where this is coming from, it's just a disgruntled person, and there's nothing there and stuff. But you know, without, I don't see how you could kind of like show the progress of the case, because if we do the jurisdictional determination and we take it, that's from public information, and then we might find them innocent, and I think that's worse than saying, yep, we took this case on, we're gonna see what happened. It's better to just say, we can't confirm or deny that we have it at this point.
Yeah, it's definitely something that warrants more thought and.
You know, and I don't know if we could put something in there that, okay, if you file a complaint, an ethics complaint, you're subject to the same confidentiality law as the subject.
Slap the free speech issues there, maybe.
Maybe that would be, you would have to have the statutory change
Or
to make that
have
correct.
something where they can't,
For the actual-
they can go and say they filed the complaint, but they can't go and put out the actual complaint.
Yeah,
Jeffrey
is everybody
Church.
beholden to the, is the public beholden to the confidentiality requirements of the?
I know.
Jeffrey Church.
Not right now.
Of the letter. And send it out.
But I don't see anything preventing us from asking if they would waive it.
Asking the subject?
Yeah.
We could.
So we can make that a standard practice internally.
We
that
could.
ask for it to be waived in all cases. They don't have to, but we ask for it.
Well,
But
so
no,
the-
because that
the-
means,
So the crazy thing, right, if you think about it in the jurisdictional phase, the vast majority of people who have ethics complaints against them never know that an ethics complaint has been filed against them. Because if we don't take jurisdiction, they don't ever get noticed. But we could have a practice where if somebody has done a story, if there's a media story about a case, we engage Sam and get the subject notified, and then get their permission to share any dismissal with the media source that reported the
I think that would be.
article.
That's a solution.
That's a solution.
That would resolve that issue.
Mhm. Yeah,
That would be an interesting press release as well to publicize it, like, this is a common practice that we're taking on in the commission to improve transparency and
I mean, it's
encourage
it's also an
media sources to.
yeah, it's an encouragement of good government too, by going out and saying something. I think that's an interesting way to approach it, and it doesn't, if we're not precluded, we don't even need the legislative action. It's just a change in how we handle it.
yeah, if we just go and for the ones that we do not take jurisdiction, we go and we contact the subject and say, if there's been a report, okay, because if there's no report, then.
Then there's
why-
Yeah,
nothing,
then there's
there's no action.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And if
what-
there's a report on it, a story on it, then we release the information, contact the subject and, put it out there because, yeah, then I think that's a good thing. But let me also play devil's advocate here. So if we do that on those cases and then somebody else, we take on jurisdiction and we don't go and release anything.
Right.
Then we're
Well-
automatically saying, yes,
No,
But there is a
but there's only what? We have a limited amount of time before the review panel, right?
Usually, a lot of times they'll wait, when we have more
But we,
time.
but we still work really hard to get
We
them
do.
done within
I
a
think
short
that
period
was one of
time.
our stats, was I think we're under 100 days.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's 100 days of gap, but once the review panel meets, then it's the confidentiality's over anyway, right?
yes. But here's the thing, we take on jurisdiction, okay? A story's been run. So we can't deny or affirm that we have a case. But if we're talking about ones that we get stories that we don't have jurisdiction, I mean, isn't that gonna kind of tip the hand that we do have
I
a
guess we're
case?
giving the option to the requester, even if jurisdiction was approved.
Subject.
To the, yeah, to the subject, excuse me, whether
Yeah.
jurisdiction was approved or not, whether or not they want that publicized, because then we have the ability to contribute to the story and say, it has not yet been determined whether or not the commissioners decided there's a violation.
But then is there an
Yes.
argument then, from their standpoint then, that even if the review panel doesn't meet, are we getting ourselves in a pickle there? In sense saying that our investigation, even though the review panel isn't done finalizing, the investigation is public information then too, if they waive their confidentiality.
That's what I worry about. is that the
Right, cause then if they
investigation-
waive it, then you can have the review panel then, the review panel then gets pressure
Mhm.
from outside sources on whether, they're reviewing the information the same way the review panel would. I don't know if I like that.
No, I don't either.
Either through request waiving confidentiality from this subject of, that just the case exists. And like the
That's what that
status of it
subject
with the
is.
limited,
The investigatory files never.
right, that's what I'm saying, like, I don't see a
So,
version
but
where.
this
Are review panel dates public?
No.
No. Mm-mm.
That's part of that's.
I mean, we publish afterwards that we had a review panel and here was our determination. Because if we did it before, then we're violating.
No,
that
I get it, yep.
person's Confidentiality.
It definitely merits some thought.
I just don't think there's a clean way to do it.
No.
Like, at the end of the day, there is going to be a period of time of
Where no one's gonna
ambiguity
know.
between the fact that we believe that we have jurisdiction,
Mhm.
and we as a group, as a body, have to meet and investigate to be able to make a
Mhm.
decision.
Right.
That's just the unfortunate nature of
How time works.
how time works. And that not all the information is available day one,
No,
Right.
when you decide you
Never.
have jurisdiction.
Right, we
No.
don't have it all then, we have to do
Right.
a public records request, those take time, we
Yeah.
have to interview people, all of that takes time that is not available in the initial, we're not even allowed to in the initial 45 days. But also, there just wouldn't even be time to do that in that initial
Mhm.
chunk of time.
Well, think it over. I mean,
Yeah.
I would
Creative
like the
solutions.
idea of somebody who, a story is ran, we didn't take jurisdiction. To be able to put something out there to say, hey, there is nothing here.
And I think we have to more broadly discuss our role with the press and whether or not we want to respond or request to be quoted, right? Like typically how we have engaged with the press is at their request. We provide background if they request quotes, if they request information for a story, right? But we've not preemptively been, oh, you published a story about this. Can you actually include the perspective of the commission on it? Even if it's procedural, even if it's,
Yeah,
oh, by the
we've only done
way.
it for like technical errors or errors
Right.
like that. We've done that a couple times.
Right, and that's
but-
usually when cases are decided.
Yeah.
Not in the early stages, right? So is it the responsibility, or do we want to take on the responsibility of the commission?
Well, I think we have the responsibility because we made a decision,
Yeah.
right? Because then there's this, I mean, it's the open question. We'll just leave it as an open question. We'll never respond. I think we have to take a more forward stance when we make a determination to back the person, to give them something to respond with outside of their own statement that they didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Right.
once again, the problem with that is not having jurisdiction. If that's why we dismissed it, doesn't make it pass the smell test.
Right.
That's true.
And that's the other thing. You don't want to be speaking on that front, saying that
They're innocent.
they're innocent
Yeah.
or what they did was right. It's just not under our purview to
Their
make,
conduct ethical.
yeah, it doesn't make their conduct ethical, which is the tricky part.
Well, you should give an advisory opinion and then, they can make it public if it's the way they want.
All right, so the next one this one also came to light here recently with that one case is a gift exception for ceremonial or educational attendance at events. Other states have this, we do not. Obviously, we can make decisions that way, but I think that's sort of an important one that we have now realized, especially the importance of in that situation.
I mean, I think this goes to the question I asked, Mr. Payne. I mean, I think the state needs to look at a better way of disclosing things. I mean, yes, we could easily say, it could put it on the county commission, put it on this. But if there was a state disclosure system that allowed people that hold public office, that, sit on commissions and panels, that annually they have the opportunity to go out and make disclosures. And as a part of the functioning of commissions and committees, the staff and thing obviously say, hey, you've already filed this, you've done this, I think there's definitely a way to do that. We in our own stuff say, hey, our own training, right? We say, hey, you should have a list, right? You should keep a list of things, right? Well, you really should make that list public at the beginning. You should make a disclosure at the beginning of every year. It can be filed with the state. It can be electronically searched. It can, I can pull up Wallen. All of her disclosures come up, right? And yes, is it still possible to miss one accidentally? Absolutely, it is still possible. But if you allow for those things to be publicly searchable, you can eliminate a lot by doing those ahead of time. And I think, that's the goal behind some of these other states, what they've done. I mean, if you encourage it, it's part of our training. We incorporate it. I think it's a great way to do that. Something to think about. And that's something that would require a legislative change.
Right.
But it's interesting in terms of, we see a lot of it. Disclosure is one of our biggest issues.
It is.
Make disclosures faster. See page this on my disclosures I reported back in January as to why,
And the Ethics Commission used to be the keeper of those financial disclosures. Those are currently with the Secretary of State's office. They get filed with the Secretary of State's office, and they have different parameters than what would trigger a disclosure or abstention under the ethics law. So that is one of the things that came up in the F1 case was, hey, they amended their disclosures to include this gift. Well, you can put whatever you want on that list of the Secretary of State's office. That doesn't make you comply with the ethics law ever.
And that's not searchable, is it?
It is.
It is, but
but
they have
still-
different
No, it's-
rules.
rules too than us. They have
It's
a
not
lot of
that-
leeway in when
It's
people
not really
file them.
searchable.
You can search the person,
The person,
and
yeah,
I
you have to scroll
would have
through.
to check to see if you can search.
No,
the
you can't
gift.
counter search. You couldn't say F1 and then pull up everyone that
Mhm.
disclosed F1 or
Yeah.
a lobbyist, just type in a lobbyist name and everyone that's,
Mhm.
Well, and as I understand it, they have a whole different system. for
but that's the way it should be. That's,
And there's-
if you really wanna make it transparent and clarity, that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
And we don't necessarily have to own that.
Right.
But it's a tool for us to be able to do our job.
Yeah.
And it's a much better tool for any public official to not create an ethics violation.
Mhm. If they have been trained.
Well, if they do it, right, they still have to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
The next one, we hear a lot, definition, we get a lot of questions on this, like
willful.
definition of a nominal gift first. I mean, you know, what's too small to be a problem? And people will say, you know, from a public agency, well, a vendor sends us a Christmas basket at Christmas. Like, are we gonna be violating the ethics law if we keep it and eat the food out of it, right? And so maybe what falls below certainly a nominal gift, perhaps, I mean, we get that question a lot, so it goes to show you that you're eating up public time figuring the answers to this out.
I mean, that's tough gift, right? Is the Christmas basket,
Right.
caviar and champagne?
Right, then
Or
there's that.
is it M&Ms and a
Right.
card?
So it's some sort of threshold perhaps that people can know.
But like if you
that they're
took
okay.
like, NDOT, okay, and all their contractors and they get all these gift baskets and it's to the head.
Oh,
of NDOT.
I 100% agree.
I mean, and so I think that, cause I thought the state had like, there is no gift
Just
allowance.
comply with the,
Yeah,
I mean, that's one of the areas where you see a lot of differences in different and local policies, right? When we had the Super Bowl and Library District 1, their policy said nobody takes a gift over $40, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, we adopted that in 1992, and that's when $40 was $40, and now we should probably adjust it. So that is the tricky part about putting a hard number in the law,
Right.
is that,
circumstances.
inflation happens.
I mean, it may be something to the effect, okay, by receiving this gift, is it going to affect my decision on this contract or something? I don't know.
And that's,
It should be adjusted for inflation if we're putting a number, not a suggestion, but like, can we make it in proportion to their net worth? Rather than the GDP.
Well, that's.
The questions we're getting are not so much like.
That's terrible, because then that's all the wealthy people that run for office have like, doesn't affect my decision making at all, but it's
Yeah.
still.
Yeah,
I think, yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
it's
Price
something
too
to
is-
think about.
And the actual price too is not always everything. Right. And so it's.
Yeah, it can be just access
Like-
to something, not
Yeah.
necessarily have no
Like I said,
value.
The gift basket like was there, but it's not just a gift basket.
That's
It's like,
right.
where did you get the gift basket, Or like, there's just some more
mhm,
like context to it.
yeah.
Another one that you referenced was definition of willful violation. That's a tough one because our definition doesn't require you to have violated the ethics law knowingly for it to be willful, just that you acted knowingly. And that's very tough when we're trying to
It is
get
a
people to
very hard
settle.
thing to explain outside of the realm of this room.
Right, well, and it's very hard for us when we're trying to negotiate.
Outside of the realm of this room, it is not common sense.
Right.
You have to
No.
read it
It's not.
to understand it.
So that's a problem we run up against a lot where people are like, I did not willfully violate the ethics law. Well, that's not the standard. So it's just hard calling that definition mixed with the idea of willful versus non-willful is. Another one we hear a lot is disclosure. That's the argument we hear a lot when people are like smaller public agencies or smaller rural counties and you've got, relatives who are working.
Everybody knows.
And they say
They're all-
everybody already knows, why should I have to disclose this every time? Then another one that has been kind of an ongoing issue is the idea of the substantial continuing business relationship with a law firm. We had a case that came before the commission, they we didn't reach a majority decision, so now it's sort of an unsettled area. So when people call and ask us about that, we have to kind of. Yeah, it had to do with the city of Reno mayor. So like if you as the public official have an ongoing relationship with a law firm and then a different lawyer than the one that represents you comes before that your body, do you have to disclose? They work at my law firm.
You have to disclose.
Law firm, so
You have to disclose.
we used to say you had to disclose, then we had a case and it didn't get a majority, so.
How could you not have to, I don't understand, that one doesn't seem
It's a
like it
long
should be-
story,
yeah.
it's a long story.
So those are sort of the
It's only
arguments we
for
get a
the-
lot.
The hearing that we had.
I guess I'll have to listen to that one before my time. Okay.
Yeah.
Then, I mean, the court rulings, I won't go into all the ones we've ever had. I mean, we recently had the one I talked about in the Rodriguez matter where the district court found the limited use exception. There had to be a policy against doing something, whereas it actually says you have to have a policy allowing it, but I would say that exception maybe has a few areas of ambiguity. Also, you know, what is an appearance of impropriety? That's a phrase that's used in a lot of different areas and has different meanings.
And I think what's interesting about it was like the appearance of impropriety language, which has been argued to be vague, right, is in the exception.
Right, it's in the
It's not in the
exception.
rule. So if you cut out the exception because it's vague, then you still have like absolutely no use of government anything. So that's a
So
tricky
it's,
one.
that one's a little bit funky. Of course, there's the Hardy case that established the bounds of what authority we have related to the legislature because of the
That's-
separation of
that's-
powers of
That's
branches.
definitely too bad.
And wasn't the Hanson Wheeler another one that really kind of cut everything out other than?
No, the Hansen case was a open meeting law case. It ended up being an open meeting law issue, not an ethics one. So it's just Hardy.
Okay.
And basically the boundaries of our jurisdiction over the legislature is we can't police any activity that is a core legislative duty. They didn't define what that is. But in the Hardy case, it was a vote, right? We said, you voted for this bill and it benefits these particular things, so therefore you need to disclose, you didn't disclose. That's against, and they said, no, voting is a core legislative duty and therefore the commission can't have
You guys
jurisdiction.
have to disclose for them.
But that, I mean, the legislative ethics is what has held up our proposed changes the last two times we've tried changes. Because both times we've gone forward, they amend it to completely cut themselves out of our jurisdiction completely instead of partially. And then the executive, you know, the governor's a select vetoed the one. And I don't think if it had hit Governor Lombardo's desk, he would have signed it.
Yeah, that's
Either,
why they held back, because he basically told them, I'll veto it, so.
yeah, so, and
So, as Mr. Payne said, it's easy to make a list of the people that don't like us. Is there a group of people that do like us?
I'll be asking for a meeting with, you know, this time we had our first like ethics day at the legislature and Assemblywoman Mosca, who is now chair of the legislative operations and elections committee, which has jurisdiction over ethics, did a proclamation for us on the floor to celebrate our 50th. So I'll be reaching out to her to see if she has thoughts, because every year she has 2 or 3 bills. Well, every year, I think she just had her second session, but she has a good government focus in a way we haven't had necessarily a champion in the past.
Do you think you can have a conversation with her before our next meeting?
I can.
Because
see
that
about
would be very helpful.
So they carved themselves out. They have their own thing. Is it functioning?
No, they attempted to do that. It's been vetoed both times. And they have
do
a legislative.
They have a
They do
legislative
have-
ethics commission, but
Does it function?
But no, it's all confidential and so
all
nobody
confidential.
knows.
Does it function? Well, that's confidential.
So do they have any rulings?
Not that are
They
public
haven't for a while.
or I'm not sure if they've even met.
No.
Their meetings are free. They have no public
So-
portion. of them.
Okay.
They do have his.
So their sole
Start-
ability
step
to
for
carve
communication.
us out is the Hardy decision.
Mhm.
I guess I have to read that.
Yeah, it's an interesting
I'll
read.
send it over to you.
I mean, basically, all we have oversight over is,
So wait a second, I wanna make sure I get this right. If we got a complaint today, you would say we did not have jurisdiction?
it depends on what it is.
I will, and I think I can do this without. I'm gonna do this and maintain confidentiality.
Well, let me ask you this. Is there anywhere a list of core legislative duties?
No, that term remains undefined. I can tell you that since I've been at the commission, we have had, I think, 2 similar complaints that highlight the legal difference. One was a complaint against a legislator who voted for something that benefited an employer. And that was clearly a core legislative duty, voting, that's right out of Hardy. I recommended no jurisdiction and the case was dismissed. We had another case.
I'm gonna go back 1 second though.
Yep.
A core legislative duty would have to, we have part-time legislatures.
Yep.
So it would have to be during session. Right?
That's-
And it would have to, I just wanna make sure, it would have to be during session, it would have to be in chambers. Right?
Even a strict interpretation, if
Alright.
you'd like to write one.
So,
yeah.
so it has not been tested, but I would,
I'm willing to test that one. I mean, I mean. Your legislative duties can only take place
when you're constitutionally able to legislate.
That's right.
I'm there.
So at any other point in time, they would fall under our jurisdiction.
Yeah.
But when they voted for something, it was when they were in session. 'Cause
So-
they didn't vote for something
Right.
outside of that.
So we had
Yeah, but
another,
bills are being discussed today. Right?
Mhm.
And if you negotiate. Not as a legislator, but in the concept of trying to move something forward that is benefiting someone that you.
Yeah.
I don't,
Drafting legislation.
but that's still, it's still a problem.
But they haven't voted,
They haven't voted, but if,
and that's the core, once they vote. And that's how this complaint came in, they haven't voted.
yeah, and so the most recent one where we
I gotta
investigated,
read, I'll have to read the decision.
You gotta be hardy.
so the most recent investigation we did on a legislator involved a complaint against a legislator who shortly after the session went to go work at a place that benefited from legislation that was passed during the thing.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And so we could not address the vote and the conduct of voting. What we investigated was any legislative equipment or meeting space or anything like this used to acquire the job? Which there was not evidence of, and so there was no issue. But that's sort of where that line is.
And the only thing we have on them is use of government property, like Ross said, that's what we're looking at. Government property, honorariums, and self-dealing contracts. That's the only thing we have over the legislature.
I mean, I think that there are some that we could go,
Yeah, cool.
the Supreme Court,
I'm reading right now the Power Broker. I told Liz about this. And it's the story of Bob Moses. I don't know if anyone knows who Bob Moses is, but it's something you should look into. He basically ran New York and was never elected to public office. I mean, all of the public works that were done in between 1926 and 68, all the parkways, all the bridges, he basically did. It's an amazing story, but it never passed the smell test. And no one did anything.
Wow.
It's just amazing to me. It's crazy.
so that's that legislative piece is our biggest hurdle into getting things done, because we've been told you're not gonna get any change to the ethics law until this piece is figured out.
And in the last session, it was like, if one of the legislators said, oh, I wouldn't vote for this if this amendment wasn't in there
And I
too.
try to draft like a compromise approach, so that should be on this committee's radar as we go forward, is that, that's probably not, I mean, we could have our bill just address legislative ethics and go head on, but it would be more successful, I think, to go the legislative route, so I will be working on that.
Yeah, I think if you talk to Mosca, that would be very helpful. Come back to us on that. Okay, all right. continue there.
An area we receive a lot of inquiries about, and in fact, we get a fair number of complaints that have to be dismissed are when public employees or officials are accused of basically using their public position to punish or harass other people. So like an example would be if the head of, public health inspections in a county does not like someone who owns a restaurant and repeatedly sends people out to inspect them or assesses violations against them, they don't assess against anyone else because there's no private commitment or pecuniary interest of the public official. There's no violation under ethics, but it's obviously an issue people deal with. So
Well,
that's
that was my
one.
question to Mr. Payne, so,
Right,
same thing.
right. Unwarranted harm to benefit significant personal or pecuniary interest. Actually, this one's like what you asked about during the presentation. When someone uses their public office to benefit friends or associates who maybe don't rise to the 065, like they don't have a commitment in a private capacity, but they're clearly using their position to benefit certain people over others. Another one that we've internally had questions about was what investigation is allowable during the jurisdiction determination phase. So right now we believe we can look at public records and we can ask for information from the requester, but we can't actually like call up someone, a third party to ask questions, because in part that would be revealing that a complaint was filed. It would also be undertaking an investigation without the subject knowing we're suddenly asking questions about them somewhere and why. So just something to think about in terms of if we wanted to make a change, being clear about what we can and can't do in that period. One that's kind of close to my heart is expanded confidentiality protections for requesters. We get a lot of people who would like to file complaints, but they are really afraid of blowback. Right now, the only time we can give requesters confidentiality is if they work at the same public agency or they can actually show us that there's a threat to their physical safety or their family. And that's a really high standard. A lot of them are like, no, I'm gonna receive a lot of this person's in a position of power and they could do things to me, or they have
family business.
they've
like, if
threatened,
something
yeah.
happens, like economic damage. is
Yeah,
really
they've
wrong.
threatened this and but it's a very extreme. You have to be at the same public agency, it's very clear cut, or it's like you have to be worried you're gonna be physically harmed. And that's a pretty high standard. So personally close to my heart is maybe more bases on which people can receive confidentiality protections for requesting. One thing we've bandied about quite a bit, required ethics training for maybe specific. Maybe you can't require it for every state employee and every county employee, but you maybe elected officials clearly where we've seen a lot is people who do a lot of voting don't understand all the rules about what they can and can't do, disclosures and abstentions. So maybe required training for certain sectors.
We define that category.
And then use of public office to benefit political party or personal interest. This is something that we've kind of seen spring up maybe in the last year and a half, where we get inquiries or complaints about public officials using their public office either sort of to prepare for a future political campaign run, or to benefit their political party or some other kind of personal interest that doesn't meet the other factors in our statute, but where they're trying to use their political office to pursue sort of personal agendas or agendas that are going to benefit them in some way, either professionally or otherwise. So those are sort of the big ones we could think of.
A lot there. That kind of segues into our next agenda item here, which is to talk about direction to the commission staff regarding, we talked about stakeholder survey, priorities, presentations, drafting for the November committee meeting. All throughout what, I would like to see what other states are doing in disclosures. Okay, I'd like to see that. I would like to also see we did some legislation before about the bad behavior, unwarranted harm. I think that was in right?
The last two times we've had it in there, we
I thought we
phrased
got-
it differently.
I thought we got rid of it the last time. I
No, we
don't
just
know.
adjusted it a little
Okay,
bit.
so check that out, and confidentiality, I think that should be looked into, what other confidentiality provisions do other states and stuff have? And then I'd also like to go and look at what can we do about keeping, I mean, I don't think we really can, but keeping requesters from going to the press or something like that. But I think, to Sam's point, yeah, freedom of,
Courtesy.
free speech, yeah. So I think we have that, so, yeah, so those are my thoughts and stuff of going forward, and
And there is a survey in there.
Yes, I
that we
saw
sent
that,
to like
yeah,
some
so-
attorneys who've handled many cases,
mhm.
some like regular requesters. And we had them rank their priorities for change. And then the second page has some stuff like, we kind of asked like, is there anything in the law we should get rid of? Because a lot of times when we do legislation, we don't think about that, like, should we get rid of some stuff? And then, considerations for additions, so.
Well, I'm gonna, I agree, I think those are great directions for the staff. The only other thing we didn't really talk about is, are there powers we lack to be able to get done what we do? And so I have heard, I've been on the commission a short time, but I have heard multiple times that parties that are being investigated can delay our process to be able to move forward. Should we be seeking additional powers from the legislature to subpoena, to do, what devices do we need to better do our job? And I think that may be a different approach than we've tried in the past. I don't know if we've tried that, but do we have enough power to do our job right?
Yeah, and I think the presentation from CLC talked about that, right?
It
Like,
did,
having
yeah.
to do 2/3. So we currently have subpoena power prior to the review panel. I think where we get into a bind sometimes with that investigatory piece is not when things take too long, but when they, like, if they don't waive that 70-day time period, to have time to appropriately issue a subpoena, have it be served, give them time to respond. It's typically subpoenaing.
So is
The
the 70-day
non-party.
time period too short?
I feel like not necessarily, if an exception can be made if subpoenas had to be issued, right? Like,
Well,
does that time extend to?
What we probably need is there to be some discretion somewhere with like the chair and the commission council or something where the executive director could request an extension of time for good cause or specified reasons.
But that's been
a lot of them.
That's been
That's been a big
it's been a big
sticking.
holdup in the past, because we've asked for that before, like, because currently the power is with the requester. And there is a process where,
But if you're intentionally trying to avoid being investigated or giving the ethics commission the ability to do their job by using that 70-day time slot against them.
Yeah.
That is a key example of what I'm saying. Like I think maybe that's a perfect example, but if you add something that said, when a subpoena is issued, it automatically extends it until the matters are met.
Served and the
There's-
deadline
yeah.
is.
so there's a process now where if we want to subpoena the subject, before we subpoena, we have to ask politely. And then if they refuse, and I can only think of one case recently where they have refused.
But that just happened.
If they refuse, then we issue the subpoena and it automatically kicks the 70-day clock.
That to me makes total sense.
Right. If it's subpoenaing third parties, there's no, like, you have to ask.
Well,
Okay.
at least the person under investigation, if they're subpoenaed for anything, it should kick the 70-day.
Mhm. Yeah. Which it does. Which is.
Well, we have to
Is it-
follow a certain, we have
Yeah,
to
yeah,
follow a
follow
certain
certain-
procedure
yeah.
first.
Yeah.
Is it
Which we
correct?
have now routinely, we do that. It wasn't always the case, but now we send those requests with the notice generally.
So you're saying it's not a problem?
I think, I think we could look at that procedure piece, because if they wanna then go litigate the subpoena, right, does that stop the clock? That's where I get nervous when it's like, or we had some folks in a recent case, like basically tell Liz as commission counsel, like, well, your investigation should be done, there's no need for discovery, you shouldn't do discovery. Right, so I think we can look at that and see, are there weak parts of, especially enforcement? For the most part, people are cooperative and they wanna clear their name.
The vast majority of subjects we have a very good working relationship with all the way to the end of.
Yeah, when we've
resolution.
gone in there to ask for extensions of time and stuff in our legislation, that's been like,
No way.
no way.
Yeah. It's been interesting.
Well, I think if we move down the line of looking at disclosures and what was the other one we mentioned?
I mentioned disclosures, talking about the bad behavior, unwarranted harm, confidentiality. Can we do something about the requesters not going to the press? We may have solved it just with what we were talking about there, so. Those were the big ones. I know what you guys are looking at here, other additions, lobbyists, I don't see that, you know, if the legislature doing anything on that, I'm sorry, I don't. Additions, more bragging of the commission's good work, I mean, isn't that what Sam does?
Yeah.
I mean, mandated training, I mean, is something to consider. To me, it's not a must-have.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you mean by ethics public defender?
The person who wrote that in the survey talked about how much time it takes their government, or I assume their government office to like defend ethics complaints. And so they would prefer that some other entity handle the public, the defense of ethics complaints. And it's very, it is very interesting about who covers what. Because in terms of local government, there's no consistent rule about who's gonna represent someone. Sometimes it's like the city or DA's office, sometimes it's a contracted pool pact attorney. Others will say, we'll represent you in some cases, but not in other cases. The AG's office does their analysis of whether the conduct was during the course and scope of the work before they'll represent them. Some counties will take a look at, some will just say, absolutely not, you go get your own private attorney, we don't do ethics representation. There is not a standard across the different government types about who's gonna represent. And it can be weird for us because we don't know sometimes until they submit their response at the 30-day mark, if they are represented, if they're gonna be represented. Yeah, so I don't know that there needs to be an entire like public defender agency established, but
That's something I think
So,
like
so
DACO or
have
somebody
we
like
had
that.
people that ultimately pay out of pocket then and do it on their own,
yeah.
majority of the time?
I don't know if it's majority, but like that it's definitely a regular occurrence, yeah.
And I think it depends on what was their ethics violation.
I agree, I think I'm not sure you can get away with the ambiguity there. If you put something in where we had to defend, or the attorney,
Yeah,
the AG had to, I don't know if that makes sense either.
We have a
Because that is definitely a presumption of innocence it creates.
well, the interesting thing we had in a recent case was that this person, we gave them notice and they responded, and they were responding all on their own. And we got to a certain stage in the process, and I thought like, then they were like, I'm gonna try to handle like this private attorney. Like, I'm gonna go buy this, I don't have a private attorney yet, can we delay this next step of the process? And I said, like, time out. Because if I'm looking at this case and I'm looking at, if I were to go full bore and get you for all I could under this case, it's gonna be way less than any private attorney costs. Like, and I said, like, you need to reach out to your government attorney, because like in some cases they'll represent you and they're still trying to figure it out, but So I don't see, us being a state, when I say us, being in a financial position to create the ethics public
No.
defender process, but, I do think we can provide more educational materials, and some courts have like self-help, self-help guardianship, self-help. We could certainly produce some resources on our website to make ethics defense easier. I don't think that needs a statutory
No,
change.
that doesn't make sense.
No, but that's actually a good idea. I hadn't have thought of that, but.
Yeah. Guidelines on gifts, I think we should look at what other states have in there. I think that's,
Yeah, I think that's a good
you
idea.
know.
Everyone I talk to wants more guidance.
Yeah, and you've got down here, this is our stakeholders, removal, nonprofit board service, either put it expressly in commitment in private capacity or stop considering it. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's no different than a business, okay? I mean, a nonprofit board versus it's no different. It's like,
100%, it is no different.
so no, forget that. Restrictions on petitions of judicial review and advisory opinions, I mean, I'm not there. And remove use of prior letters of instruction caution from consideration of current ethics complaints. I'm sorry, if you've gotten a letter of caution or letter of instruction and we're not supposed to take that into consideration,
I forgot.
I mean, you've been told, so no, I'm not for that. Anything else you want, boss, to read back?
Nope, I think that's enough. I think those are. They might even be too broad for what we can accomplish, so
But
we
it's
will have
a
to look at
starting
what you bring us back and figure out if where we can round up some.
I think
like-minded
it's a good starting
individuals.
point,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sorry to forget my contractors from last week. I don't think they'll actually submit a request for advisory opinion as much as I want them to. But they're contractor physicians who are referring to other doctors that they investigate on a regular basis. And they're like, this is a substantial business related. We're referring patients to each other all the time. But we all have a duty to investigate them. Like, please just submit an advisory opinion. But yeah, I think that when we're talking about looking into disclosures, that might be really interesting. Piece to consider. Yeah, that's.
All right. Okay, with that, then, you've got your marching orders,
I do.
okay? Next item, commissioner comments.
none additional.
I don't have any public comment. Executive Director Armstrong. Has the commission received any public comment by email to be read into the record?
No.
Are there any members of the public who are attending or in person?
There are no members of the public here in Las Vegas or on the Zoom.
Right, well, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second, all in favor?